My story begins in El Salvador. I was born in San Salvador, El Salvador, and at the age of 12, 19 years ago, I migrated to the Australia with my mother, my brother and my sister. From the moment we arrived in Australia, I remember to visit different Christian churches of different denominations, such as we used to do it in El Salvador. Unfortunately, none was solid or enough for us to stay. I was originally baptized in the Church Catholic, and as a teenager I thought that being Catholic was very comfortable. I began to seek more guidance to follow God's commandments. At the age of 15, my family and we began to attend the Church of Jesus Christ of the Latter Days, commonly known as the Mormons. I had been a member for a long time, and we found that made much more sense than many other Christian teachings that we had heard. The only thing is that along with the good things came many that didn't seem to have any logical explanation, such as the fact that there are prophets inspired with revelations within the church. So I thought that with faith one day I would understand them and they would make sense. A few months later I was baptized. A few years passed and I really liked the church, but once again I was confused by the fact that they didn't seem to think there was anything wrong with young people enjoying the nightlife as long as they didn't drink, smoke and do bad choices. As a teenager, you can tell me how it's possible to enjoy all this and still stay away from temptation. Stay away of so much temptation was difficult and, thus, I became inactive, as they say, for a while. At the age of 19 I met a boy who now he's my husband. He is a Muslim. He was not a practicing Muslim but what I liked about him was the fact that he was principled and loved God deeply. We talked about marriage and concluded that we wanted to be together. At the time, being an inactive Christian and he was an inactive Muslim, we reached a mutual agreement to marry only at the registry office to avoid any preference of our respective religious beliefs. As the years passed, I thought about back to church, any church, since my love for Jesus continued and I felt the need to be close to God. But the thought soon faded when I thought about one of the main reasons I stopped of going to church first. There was a lot of fighting, defamation and criticism. This always happened in the many churches I attended and I thought I did the people forget the real purpose of being there. Going to church seemed like another Sunday social event than worship of God. I can honestly say that, at that time, the Islam didn't interest me and, believe me, becoming a Muslim had never been a Muslim option in my list of preferences about the ways to get closer to God. There was no interest, until recently. A few months ago I had a dream that really shook me. I was very scared and woke up praying to God for guidance. 2 weeks later I had another dream very similar to the first one and I woke up saying in Spanish, En el nombre de Dios Almighty and All Pious. In the name of God the Almighty and Merciful. I prayed and asked God for guidance, to help me to draw near to Him, to do His will, and to show Him how or what I needed to do to be close to Him. I continually asked Him that if He wanted me to go to church to worship Him, who would please lead me to the right church. But more importantly, I asked Him to make it clear to me to understand how it is in what ways He wanted me to draw closer to Him. I also asked Him to make it so clear that my heart could not deny His will. Within a week I had a third dream. I was in a car heading towards a very high mountain. I can't say if it was the driver or passenger. But when the car almost reached at the top of the mountain, I had a feeling that something bad was going to happen. I looked out of the car window and noticed that I had reached the highest point of the mountain and could see a blue lake in the background. It was so small that it could hardly see the blue water in it. In that second the car lost control. I tried a lot regaining control of the steering wheel, but it was impossible. I remember thinking like death had crossed my path, there was no chance or hope of survival, and that soon, when my car fell into the abyss, I would die. I was very scared and frustrated that there was no chance of salvation. He was facing death. I started to feel extremely stressed with the fear because the car was falling towards the lake. As the car fell, I heard a loud voice echoing through the mountains. It was so high that it made the mountains shake. The voice was loud but beautiful. It was so beautiful it gave me inner peace and made me lose the fear of dying. But the most important thing was that what gave me that peace was the words being spoken. Then I heard the voice for the second time. This time continued one for a longer period. A bright orange and yellow light appeared among the mountains. It was sunrise. As the car was about hitting the ground, a road appeared out of nowhere. It was the road to my salvation. But what had really saved me were the words spoken by the voice through the mountains, and the words were Allah Akbar, the call to prayer, the adhan, called by the muezzin in the mosque. I woke up instantly, and it was so emotional that I couldn't stop crying. I think I cried seriously for about 2 hours, but it was the most beautiful feeling of all. I couldn't even talk, and my husband, I kept asking what was wrong. I told him my dream. And then I told him that I wanted to read the Quran. I felt it was a message from God wanting me to seek knowledge. The next morning I began to analyze Islam. It's so funny that for the last 13 years I've been surrounded by so many Muslims and have never been aware of the true beauty of Islam. I remember my brother-in-law, a practicing Muslim, explaining the divinity of God. It is important to worship God alone and that no other being should be worshipped together with Him or instead of Him, but my heart was completely sealed. I was never interested in knowing anything about it. In fact, she was offended and sometimes wanted to tell him how much she was disoriented. I was convinced that it was not the right religion, definitely not religion for me. When I was seeking knowledge, I investigated so much so that I learned a lot. I even started exchanging emails with people with knowledge on the other side of the world. I discovered how Islam is not just for Middle Eastern people or Arabs, as most people think. Islam is for everyone, regardless of their race, nationality, or ethnic origin. It is for those who truly love the teachings of Jesus, peace be about him, as I do. It is for those who love all servants, messengers, and prophets of God, and, more importantly, for those who recognize the importance of God's prophets, of the benefits that follow when we truly worship God alone. Alhamdulillah, praise be to God. I was so fascinated by the treasure I had just discovered, the beautiful truth, the evidence, and the benefits of the teachings of Islam. I read the story of Christianity and studied some verses from the Bible. I read not only the Islamic side, but the real story of all these beliefs that had blinded me so much by so many years. Who could have imagined that hearing the call to the prayer would not only save me in my dream, but that was also truth and salvation for which he had been asking in reality? God had answered my prayers. I put my spiritual feelings aside and I analyzed the evidence I had before me, and my conclusion was this: Ashhadu alla ilaha illa Allah wa ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. I testify that there is no true God except Allah, and that no one has the right to be worshipped except God, and that God has neither partner nor son, and witness that Muhammad, may the blessings and mercy of God be upon him, was a true prophet and messenger sent by God. Now in 2010, after 13 years of being married with my husband, I reverted to Islam. My husband is still shocked that I have reverted to Islam, and his family, and, of course, mine, too. But when you know everything you're doing is in the name of God and no one else, it's all sure. Some of my closest friends gave me I am very supportive because they know that Islam has given me inner peace and humility. Others think I became an extremist because I pray 5 times a day and changed my dress code completely. Alhamdulillah. Praise be to God. When I first started praying, I remember finding a lot of strange at first, but it felt so right at the same time. Islam is not only one religion, but one way of life. Alhamdulillah, wearing the hijab now I feel so free and respected. People who don't know me automatically have the impression that I am from the Middle East, and when they find out that I am Latin American are shocked, since a Muslim Latina is a stranger here in Australia. I haven't found one yet. They ask why the drastic change, but alhamdulillah, it's a good thing because it gives me a chance to make a little explanation of the beauty and wonders of Islam. Wearing the hijab gives me a feeling of pride because I feel that I have contributed to the good values that many of us have forgotten. The hijab is not a responsibility, it is a right bestowed upon me by my Creator, who knows us best. Definitely feel that I am contributing to today's society so that women are not oppressed having to dress or behave in a certain way to be accepted. I cannot tell you how happy I am, alhamdulillah, that Allah has I have guided myself to His path, and I know that we have planned things, but Allah is the best planner. Just as the ayah, verse, of the Quran says, He is the one who gives life and death, and when He decides something, says only, be, and it is. Quran 40-68. In a matter of weeks, I knew it was the way sure. My heart felt the complete opposite of the rejection I had for Islam. Reverting to Islam helps me fight to be on His side in the next life. My life on this earth is not forever. Therefore, I have to strive to be a good servant of God to be in paradise one day. The happiness I have here, it is not eternal, but if I return to the side of my Creator I will have happiness eternal. Ask God only for guidance with submission total and seek knowledge, because you will be rewarded by our Creator. My name is Marcella, I was born in El Salvador and I'm very proud to be a Muslim. I am truly grateful to Allah for me guide to revert to Islam. Those whom Allah guides can never be disoriented. Inshallah, God willing. My story will be an encouragement to bring more Latinos to the true beauty of Islam.